Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Abhijit Mutha, and I'm the founder of Primes and Zooms. Thank you for joining us for today's session. I have with me today Rahul Sachdev. Rahul is a wildlife photographer. He's also a wildlife photography mentor, and he also does a lot of wildlife tours, and he himself travels a lot. So Rahul has recently been appointed a Canon EOS Maestro, and today we will be talking about Rahul's experience in his travels in Japan. So welcome, Rahul. Thank you for joining us today,
Thank you
and
so much, Abhijit. Hey,
congratulations
thanks.
on becoming a Canon EOS Maestro.
Yeah, thank you so
Uh,
much.
so, so Rahul, very few people actually think of Japan as a wildlife destination, or even very few people consider it as an option. So, how did you happen to visit Japan?
A good one. I don't have a very short answer to that, so I'll try to keep it as concise as I can. But so when somebody thinks about international tours or international photography in India, I think by default everybody heads to Masai Mara and
Right.
other parts of Africa, mainly covering mammals. It could either be, if not Africa, people will go to Svalbard or other places to cover mammals. And I
Yes.
started my journey, photography journey, with birds, particularly with waterfowl, with ducks. And right in our backyard in Pune, there's a place called Kavadi, and that's where I started to
Right.
learn about birds and learn about photography. So I had a always had a connect with birds. But uh, over the course of the last 10 years, I kind of disconnected a little bit with bird photography as such. And when I was thinking that, what do I want to do with my bird photography? I mean, where do I want to take it next? Uh, I started looking up for options. The first thing that any birder in India these days would do is probably look for rare birds and go to the place where you get the rare
Yes.
birds. So that's what I did. I went to Thailand. Now, Thailand is known for a
Uh-huh.
lot of other reasons as well, but lesser known is that it's a fantastic destination for hard to get species that are not very easy to find in northeast of India are relatively easier to find in Thailand. So I went to Thailand for
Okay.
3 or 4 times, after which I again felt a disconnect that, okay, what was happening there was that most of the time with my bird photography I was doing a point and shoot kind of role. I was relying more on the
Uh-huh.
camera doing its job correctly than me doing anything right. I mean, I knew how to set up the camera, I knew exposure compensation, I knew when to set the shutter speed how, and that was it. I wasn't doing anything much more. So then I started researching more on what is a place that can give me some challenging opportunities, something that where I can have a mark on the images. I can do something different in a place, and that's where Japan came in. I think Japan has the
Mm-hmm.
unique property that it gives you a guaranteed result in terms of the species. The species that we go to shoot in Japan,
Really?
or the areas that you go to Japan,
Uh-huh.
the the birds are just there. You will never come back from these places saying that, oh, the bird was not there. Unlike, you go to Ranthambore, you might end up going 5 times and without you come back without a tiger, for example.
Right.
Or
Yes.
for example,
Yes.
even you go to Run of Kutch and you could have a tour wherein you do not see the peregrine falcon, which is supposedly very common there. But Japan is one destination where you can guarantee that, the subject is going to be there. And plus, it's got the biggest plus for Japan is snow. And that is something that really made me go to Japan, because snow adds a very different flavor to your images, and that's something that I cannot capture very well in India for sure. So that's why I chose Japan in a
Mm-hmm.
nutshell.
So, what can one reasonably expect to shoot in Japan? Could you show us some images that you shot there? We've seen the presentation, and those are some beautiful images. Can we get some more dope out of you?
Right. So Japan is known for, at least the winter in Japan is known for two areas. Okay, the first area is the area for the
Huh?
snow monkeys, and the second area called
Okay.
Hokkaido, which is where my tours are concentrated on, is mainly known for three things. Firstly, it's known for
Mm-hmm.
a bird called the red crowned crane, then the swans, and the third is the stellar eagles. So we can go through the images if let's start playing the images, and I can talk a little more on them.
Sure.
I hope I don't bore everybody with the images. Okay, so let's start with the first one, and that will tell you why I really go to Japan. The first image, once it comes up. You want me to share my screen and go ahead with it? That can be done.
Yeah, I think that's
coming up. Okay. Right. So this is the reason why you have to go to Japan. Whoever is logged in right now, forget the birds, forget the snow, forget the cold, forget the snow monkeys, forget everything. Just go there for the food, guys. If you see the second image there, can you see how many different things are there on my plate? I mean, believe me, guys, we used to, rush to the hotels every evening because we wanted to see what's new, what are we going to eat today. A lot of people have this apprehension that I go to Japan, I might not be able to eat anything. Yes, it is not the best place for a pure vegetarian in terms of the delicacies that they have to offer, but a vegetarian can still live there. But if you are somebody who can eat non-veg, okay, who does not mind fish, then it is a phenomenal place. And I think, that was the most important image in my slideshow. And we can keep talking about it for a long time, but maybe on a different day. So let's go to the next image and start with the actual stuff. Yeah, can you go to the next image, guys? Right. So this is the real reason why I went to Japan. And when I say this, it's not the bird, it's the snow. And it's not the snow on the ground, it's the snow falling, right? It's the fresh snow that is making this image slightly different from any other crane image. Now these cranes, the red crown cranes, or tancho as they are called in Japan, it's interesting to know that their numbers had dwindled down to 12. From 12 today they are around 2000. Yeah, that's all, 12. So from 12, the government then said, enough is enough. Let's try to do something about them, and they took it really seriously. And just like the way we have it in Khichen in near Jodhpur, where you get these demoiselle cranes coming in every year, and they spread grain from there for them. Similarly, during winters, there are a couple of locations in the northern area of Japan called Hokkaido, where the government puts in some grains for these guys every couple of days, so that they do not fall short of food in the winters. And that's helped them immensely. And since it's a very small area, I mean, it's probably roughly 30-40 square kilometer within which these guys are generally seen in Hokkaido, it virtually guarantees that you will get to see them. And all that you need to do is time yourself as best as possible that you reach in the snowiest possible time. So for example, when you go to Japan, and if there's a forecast of a blizzard, you should be happy, not sad that there is a blizzard. A blizzard, yes, it means wrong things for everybody else, but for you, it is the best time to be there, because that's when you'll get the most snow falling. And the birds, even the cranes, they seem to be dancing, like we say that the peacock dances in the rain or just before the rain. These guys actually dance in the snow. And that's something that's happening here as well. I don't know whether they're happy or irritated or what, but they look pretty. And that's what I went to capture. And I thought that this is a good image to start with, because it depicts what Japan really means for wildlife photographers. Now we can go to the next one.
There's some delay in the image. Could you share the image from your end?
I can do that, yeah. Let me see if I am faster than that. My machine, I doubt my machine will be faster, but who knows. Okay, so let me just open these all. Give me a sec, guys. I'm just trying to share it. Share screen.
Sure.
Can you guys see it? Let me know when you can see the screen.
Yes, it's coming up. Yep, it's up.
Okay. So what I've done in most of these,
Beautiful.
right, what I've done in most of these next set of images is that I have clubbed them together in some sort of logic that I have applied. So, for example, in this one, both again red crown cranes. This image is what I would consider a typical red crown crane image, which is not very difficult to get. Yes, there is a challenge in this image that the background is much darker than the subject, but I think if you are going all the way to Japan to click bird photographs, you would know about underexposure and overexposure, and you would come back with a decent frame of this. You will not blow out the entire bird just because the background is dark, right? So, given that, this is
Right.
probably the easier image to get. But the one on the right, I hope you guys can see the entire image now. Now, this was a slightly
Yes.
more difficult image to capture because the white that you see on the bottom, the whitish misty
Yes.
feel,
Right.
is actually a piece of cloth.
Correct.
It's a piece of cloth that I
Oh,
have kept in front of my lens, which obstructs the light coming in, and it gives this misty feel to it. I would have loved to
okay.
have the mist out there actually, but the piece of cloth works well, and I use this technique in every national park that I go to, quite
Okay.
frankly. And whoever is listening who is interested in photography, try it out. I'm sure you'll come back with different results. Now, this behavior that the bird is showing is something that they do when they are typically. What happens is these guys uh, roost in a river, in a cold river every day in the evening, and in the morning they come down to these snow fields, and they generally greet each other by dancing, and this is the start of the dance. So he's come in, landed, which is why there is snow flying around, and then he starts dancing. So, and
Beautiful.
he is in breeding plumage when the red is the at the peak. Not every crane has this red very bright and shiny. Only a few of them have. So I was
Right.
lucky that I got that. Okay, let's move to the next image. Let me know when you can see the next set
Yep, it's
of two
up.
images. Yeah, it's up. Okay, great.
It's
Again,
up.
if you do a Google search on Hokkaido, Japan cranes, this is the image that's gonna this or something similar with the water slightly pinkish orange and snow and cranes sleeping in the river. This is what you will typically get.
Okay.
Now, let me spend a couple of minutes explaining this place to you guys. Now, this is a place called the Ottawa Bridge. Okay, it's called the Ottawa Bashi Bridge, to be complete. And
Right.
on any given winter day, you will find 200 photographers here. It is not a sight for the faint-hearted. You you literally have to go in the morning at around 4 a.m.
Uh-huh.
just to get a place to
Place
keep
there.
your tripod.
Wow.
So you set up your camera at 4 a.m. You know that the birds are sleeping there. Okay, they sleep in the river every night. You just don't know the exact position, but the bridge has some, just like you have these prime spots in terms of when you go to a theater, for example, you would inevitably look for the center spot, not for the edges, right?
Yes.
Similarly, the bridge has
Yes.
some areas called the center areas wherein most people would want to be, because that gives you the best view of the cranes. So you end up going there at 4 a.m. And the tricky bit is not every day is similar in the morning, right? I mean, obviously, some days could be completely snowed
Uh-huh.
out, wherein you will not get anything. Some days could be nice and bright like this one, and some days could be bitterly cold. So this day, when you see this orangish feel to it, it was probably around minus 20 degrees in the morning. Minus 20 degrees Celsius
Wow.
is what this was clicked at. But even that is not the best climate to click these cranes. If you notice the top half
Okay.
of this image, what color do you see of the trees? What is the predominant color there? Abhijit,
It's
what do you think?
it's mostly dark.
Mostly dark.
Dark gray.
Perfect. Dark grayish. Perfect. So these are obviously all winter trees where the leaves have all gone off. But when the temperature
Yes.
dips below a certain degree, for example, the next image that I show you, this one has been
Right.
clicked at minus 29 degrees Celsius. Okay.
Oh my
when
God.
the
Okay.
morning is that bitter cold, you get something called as the hoarfrost on the trees, which is why the trees start looking whitish. All this white
They're
is
glowing. Yes.
actually, all this white or blue is actually frost on the trees, and that's what's causing this,
Oh,
ethereal sort of feel to it. Now, one of the things that I
right.
did when right
Sure.
so when I
I
mentioned that,
meant to ask you if that's an
yeah,
infrared image.
yeah, no, I wanted to, it does look like something is going wonky here in the terms of the colors. But here's another thing that I
Right.
do a lot in the field. I know of a lot of people, a lot of bird photographers, or a lot of photographers in general. When they're clicking silhouettes in the evenings, they turn the camera white balance to 10,000 degree Kelvin or 9,000 degree Kelvin to get a nice orange feel. Correct? I think
Mm-hmm.
almost everybody does that. But I find that nobody really goes to the other end of the spectrum. Now, when you're clicking an image at, like, dawn, when the entire scene is mainly grayish blue and not orange, why not try
Right.
an image at 3000, 3500 Kelvin, 4000 Kelvin, which will enhance the blues of the image? And that's what's been
Hmm.
done in this frame. The frame that you
Okay.
see right now is probably clicked at around 4000 degree Kelvin, and that's why it's got the bluish feel to it. And
Yes.
quite frankly, I spent on this trip alone, I spent 4 mornings on that bridge, and this is the only image that I think that I got which is different from what the other 200 guys sitting next to me or standing next to me would have got. And that's what it's all about as a wildlife photographer, that how can you make your images different? 90% of the people
Right.
will get this image, right? Only a handful of
Yes.
you will give you this image. So that's why I'm satisfied with this particular image. All right, let's go to the next one.
Mhm. So, Rahul, before we
Yes,
proceed,
please.
we have a question from Nitin who wants to know if it's a semi-transparent cloth that you use for getting the effect of the mist.
uh, it's actually, in Hindi we call it a gamcha. It's something that I purchased in Tadoba,
Okay.
in the heat at, like, in one of the June months, which you wrap around yourself to take care of the, you put it in water and then you wrap it around you so that you don't feel the heat so much. So it really does not matter on how
Yeah.
thick really the cloth would be, because the if you know how your camera works,
Hmm.
for example, if you go to a
Yes,
zoo,
Harshil. Yeah.
right? If you go to a zoo and you put your camera lens right against the barbed wire of the zoo, of the enclosure,
The
the
bar.
barbed wire will not come in the
Yes.
image at all,
You.
right?
Right.
So if the cloth is very, very
Yes.
transparent, and it actually will not show up. You want the cloth to have
Not sure.
some better opacity for it to show up in the image.
Opacity.
Right,
True.
right, right.
Sure.
Yeah. Any other questions that you want to take up right now, or we can move?
No, I think we can proceed.
Okay, great. So again, this is the next place. I'm trying to go in the sequence in which the trip happens. So the first thing that we do is we land up in the crane place in Hokkaido. We give a good 3-4 days to the cranes, and
Uh-huh.
believe me, the 3-4 days we're just doing cranes, nothing else. This is not a trip. Japan,
Okay.
generally, winter Japan is not for people who want to get 100 species in 5 days. Okay, that's not what it's going to be. It'll be 5 species in 100 days probably. Okay, so it is purely a bird photographer destination. Not that there are not any
Right.
other birds. There are birds. It's just that generally when you're doing a bird photography tour, uh, this is purely for photography only, wherein you want to exercise your creativeness and not just get a portrait and going with it. That's not the kind. That's
Yeah.
not the case, right? So anyway, so this image has been clicked at a place called Lake Kusharo. Now, Lake
Mm-hmm.
Kusharo is
Okay.
actually a caldera, and
Okay.
it freezes over completely in the winters. When I say
Mm-hmm.
completely, 99% of it freezes over. There is a 1% edge of the stream, edge of the lake, which actually has hot streams coming out from underneath. There are geysers underneath it, which is why the
Okay.
edge of the lake never freezes. It's actually very
Right.
misty and very surreal kind of scenario there every winter. And
Mm-hmm.
the swans choose that place to stay the winter.
Okay.
Here again, I don't know what's the what's the deal with these swans, but they are super bold. I mean, they don't care where you're standing. I mean, you would probably be clicking at a max of 2 feet from them, a max.
Oh,
To get a swan far away is a challenge there. The problem generally in the frame is, there are too many. How do we get further away from these guys? So anyway,
that's a novel experience for most of us.
yeah, and that is one of the reasons why Japan is so good for the photographer, is because the subject is always there. You're not spending 90% of your time hunting for the subject. You're spending 90% of the time doing better compositions, which is
Right.
what it should be. I mean, that's not always the case, but as long as you've got the birds there, it gives you that control over the creativity a little bit more than other places. So here, these guys are just just having fun. They've just landed after a snowy night. It's a clear morning, and they landed on the ice, and they're coming towards us, and we are at the edge. So there is water in between us and the swans here, and they're just probably greeting each other and honking away to glory. Again, this is more or less a point and shoot shot, guys. I have done nothing specific here. I've just made sure that I'm on the ground and I'm not standing up at height of 10 feet from them. So that's the only basic thing I've done. I've gone to the eye level of the subject and just did a point and shoot. Fast shutter speed. I don't care about the aperture here because the mountains are so far behind. They will look as they will look. That's fine. Which brings us to this image, wherein I did something more. I actually was lying down in the water here, and in the mist. So if you try to concentrate on the swan here on the right, the extreme right swan, you'll notice that it is not the clearest. You'll see that this one is the one on the left is much clearer. That is because of the mist. So you have to time yourself there, because there is the smoky mist coming out of the water at any given point in time. You have to time yourself there such that you get most of the swans clearly. At least if you just want a clear image. So this is one wherein I think I thought about the composition. It's not always about underexposure, side lit, backlit, or always going creative in terms of that. It is also sometimes about just think about the composition, think how the elements are talking to each other, and make the image. So if there isn't any other question about this, let me move on to the next one.
No, we can proceed.
Yeah. You will notice that I talk a lot about the swans because they are by far my favorite subjects there, and they are by far the subjects that I have found the most challenging, precisely for the reason that they are always there. They are just so many, and they're just there, and you are challenged so much for being creative, for doing something right with them. So here again, I played with the white balance. It is one of my pet go-to is playing with white balance. I know a lot of people, when they are being taught photography, even when I conduct workshops on photography, I say that you can really talk about white balance once you come back. It's something that if you're shooting a raw image, you can change the white balance after you come back. But the challenge that I find myself with that is that when I come back, will I know how this image will look under various white balances and try that? I often find that people will not even try that. For example, with the crane images that I showed earlier, I don't think I would have gone to 4000 Kelvin while doing my post processing, because the mind doesn't work that way. So I believe more and more these days that at a time when you're trying to do something different, try the white balance also in the field. It works wonders. So again, here it's a bluish white balance. The sun had just set behind the mountains, and there was a nice smooth, champagne color to the water, pinkish hue here and there, and a lot of mist coming in. And this was clicked at like 1/10th of a shutter speed. There was absolutely no light. I was at 3200 ISO, so it's thanks to the cameras that this image has actually come out printable. Otherwise, if this was the days of the Canon 50D, I wouldn't have, not 50D, maybe even before that. Earlier days the cameras were not tuned to handle 3200 ISO very well, but nowadays I think we can push the camera a bit. Yeah, and we have these decent enough software available which can take care of noise to a certain level.
Right.
So in this case, that left and right logic does not apply. Both of these images, I feel, have some element of me in them, and they're just not just point and shoot kind of things. If any of you are following me on Instagram, you would notice that I have started going towards black and white a lot. It's just that it gives me, I don't know, it gives me a different kind of pleasure to see something devoid of color. It's just pure raw nature is what I feel. And uh, this is an image where kind of, when I was sitting here in this Lake Kusharo, it just made us feel that all of us, I think we discussed this after the shoot as well, that it made us feel so minuscule in the uh, entire world. The
Right.
huge mountains, the nature, everything is out of our control. You're clicking at minus 20 degrees Celsius. You are wearing like 6 layers of clothes. Yet these birds come in like as if it's like 30 degrees is in the summer, and they are playing around and coming in honking around. So I just wanted to convey the vastness of the place in this image. I'll bore
So
you
Rahul,
a little more. Yeah.
we have one question around the image of the swans, the
Yeah.
image on the left. So
Yeah.
Khalid wants to know how you achieved to freeze the moment on that slow shutter.
No. I did not do anything. The swans were steady. That's it. I have probably clicked 25 images here. Only one of them is sharp. Okay. 24 images I don't show you because they are not sharp. I couldn't do anything. I was just praying to God that let one image be sharp. So this was also the end of the day. This was also the time when these guys are not the most active, and they are, if you notice, they are at the edge of the water. They are almost about to go onto the ice and then fly away for the night, and they'll roost where they roost, which I could not find in the night where they roost. But hopefully next time I'll know where they roost, and I'll do some night photography as well with them. But anyway, so yeah, so it's morely luck, Khalid, more than anything else, boss. Quite frankly, I don't want to lie there. Okay. Needless to say, this was not handled. It was on a tripod. It is almost all images in Japan are on tripod, except for ones that I will tell you about. But yeah, almost all other images are on tripods.
Okay.
Okay. Uh, I'll move to the next one. Again, this is a set which is more about how my style has developed these days. I've seen a lot of images in snow where people overexpose, as I've done in the
Mhm.
image on the right. The
Yes.
image on the right is not a very decent exposure of the bird, but that's not the point. The point is that I wanted to give you a misty, surreal kind of feel to the image, which is why it was overexposed. But the one to the
Right.
left is a complete underexposed image. And again,
Mhm.
I clicked probably 70, 80 images of this scene, and only in a couple of images has the outline of the swan come out this nicely. A lot of places the swan was looking at me, was looking down, doing something else. So it luck definitely plays a good part here. But
Mhm.
the important thing is that you need to be aware on what can happen if you underexpose, what can happen if you overexpose, which is why I
Right.
wanted to show these two images, which are diametrically opposite in terms of the way they are shot.
Yes.
These are not on tripod because I'm so close to them, and I am trying to move myself with the birds that it would have been impossible to have a tripod on these guys. So there are two particular locations on Lake Kusharo where you can click these swans. The images that you saw before this were from a different location. This is the
Okay.
location where the swans are really up close and in a bunch, which is why you will almost never see a single solitary swan from this location. They're always thereabouts. It's just that if the mist is a lot, you are helped by the mist that most of the other ones go out of focus,
Right.
right? Which brings me to the last bird, if I may say so, last set of birds. Uh, One of my friends who came with me to Japan this year, Ranga, he said that I'm coming only for the eagles, and
Okay.
we don't reach to the eagles until the 8th day of our tour. And
Uh-huh.
by the time we reached, you know, all the 8 days, the news that we were getting is that the eagles are not there yet. The eagles are not there yet. What that
Okay.
means is, what happens in Japan is these eagles, the one on the left, for example, this guy is a Steller's sea eagle, and this guy stays in the Amur River throughout the
Okay.
year. And once the Amur River starts freezing up,
Mhm.
there's a huge chunk of ice that flows out of the Amur basin and comes down to Japan, to Hokkaido. From so that part of Russia is above Japan, and the
Right.
Amur basin, the ice pack flows from the Amur basin and comes down to Japan, and these guys follow the ice pack. So
Okay.
if the ice pack has not reached Japan, the eagles have not reached Japan. And I remember we were at Lake Kusharo on the day before our departure to this place called Rausu for eagles. And one chap who came from Rausu said, boss, there's no pack ice. No pack ice really means no eagles. And you should have seen this guy's face. But thankfully, when we reached the next morning, in the afternoon, somebody said that the pack ice has arrived. And the way you go to shoot these eagles is you go early morning at around 5 o'clock on a ship, and it is biting cold, biting cold. I cannot emphasize more on that. Even though the temperature on the Ottawa Bridge was minus 29 degrees, and here it was probably minus 18 degrees, this was by far much more troublesome, because what happens with these eagles is once you see them, they are around 300 or 400 of them all around you. Okay. It's crazy. They are all around, again, just like the swans. They are all around, and for a continuous set of 2.5 hours, you are just shooting blind. You're just shooting, and your hands are always exposed to the elements. Even though you're wearing gloves, you can't wear those thick gloves which protect you from the bitter cold, because you can't use the camera through them. So you're using your inner gloves. Yeah, you wear 2 layers of gloves in Japan. So you wear your inner gloves, which are not that protective, and you are freezing to death. So every 15 minutes, we used to go into the ship where they keep a heater. Okay. They know that this is going to happen, so they keep a heater in the ship, and you go spend 5 minutes there, get warmed up, and then go back out again and shoot. Here again, this time I did four trips on the ship, and only on one of the trips we got the ice or the snow falling. On the other trips, we did not get the snow falling, which is why it makes sense in Japan that you concentrate on the species, concentrate as much as possible, give it as much time as possible, because not always are you going to get lucky with the snow. Because without the snow, this image is just an eagle sitting on the snow, not eagle sitting on the ice. It's the snow that adds to it.
Yes.
Right. This again is a species that people in India would like to see a lot. It's the white-tailed sea eagle. There are a couple of individuals which come to India, but in Japan they are resident, and they are not as numerous as the black kite, but they are pretty numerous there. So here again, I've tried a little bit of overexposure. This could have been a standard eagle sitting in snow, and I could have seen the background of snow as well. But I decided to go a little minimalistic in this one, and tried to show just the eagle with almost nothingness around it. I have a few more images of this wherein you don't see even the snow on which it is sitting. So that's where I made the error of overexposing a little too much. But thankfully, I corrected myself in the field and had a few images which were worthy of showing you guys. Okay.
So Rahul, while we are here, we have a question from Khalid, who wants to know if you faced any issue of your lenses fogging, and how did you manage?
A lot. Yeah. So I mean, the first time that it happened, we were in a heated car and we didn't know what's going wrong. So for the next time onwards, we kept our equipment outside and didn't take it inside when we went to get heated up. So the equipment stayed outside, so that there's not too much change in terms of the temperature for the glass. But yeah, valid question. But inevitably this is going to happen, and you will have to keep a cloth with you, and you'll have to keep watching out that what's happening, whether it's freezing up, whether it's fogging out or not. This happens a lot with the swans, because you've got a scenario where you've got smoke or heated mist coming out of the water at one end, and the other end is complete snow. So it happens a lot, and you have to continuously keep using the tissue or the cloth that you have. Okay.
And so while we are on that, Rahul, have you faced any issues of bodies that stop working, or that freeze, etc.?
Right. Now, I am not being paid to say this, or I don't have anything against anybody here. But one thing that worked like clockwork was that if the temperature goes below minus 15 degrees Celsius, the XQD card stops working. It just stopped
really?
working. Yeah. We tried multiple XQD cards, maybe of the same company. I don't remember the company, but the XQD cards just stopped working at minus 15 degrees Celsius, and we did not know why. What's going wrong? And this happened on the first time it happened was with the cranes, because that was where we first saw below minus 15 degrees on the bridge. And the XQD card just stopped working, but nothing else. Everything else worked fantastically. Even the good old CF cards, the SD cards, even the SD cards. And believe me, the SD cards were okay, no problem. But the XQD cards gave up. So yeah, we were like, come on, man. But that's what it is. But nothing else failed. Every other body. We had people with Nikon. We had people with Canon. I don't think we had any guy with Sony there. But a huge variety of Nikon and Canon were there, and nobody faced any problems. Yeah. So yeah, except for the XQD card, the batteries drain much faster. But that is normal. Everybody going to Ladakh and doing snow leopards also would know that the batteries drain faster. So you need to keep many more batteries with you when you're out there, and you have to keep them warm as far as possible. Just keep them in your pockets, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'll go to the next image, which will be the last of the eagles, I hope. I'm not going to cover the second last one. Right. So again, here I tried something different with both these eagles. I love shooting against the light, and we were lucky to have a captain on the boat who understood silhouettes, who understood that people would want to click against the light in the morning. So we did not have to tell him much. So he positioned the vehicle or the ship well, and we got lucky with this juvenile white-tailed sea eagle who decided to land on this pointy icy structure. It was a favorite kind of icicle for most of the eagles. If you notice, the one on the right, which is a stellar sea eagle, is also the same ice, same snow, same ice pack, same position. It's just that this one was much earlier, before the sun came out, and I decided to go slightly slow on the shutter speed here, yet overexpose, which is obviously, you go slower on the shutter speed, you're exposing for more time, which is what is giving that blurry kind of feel. And that's probably, I know that a lot of people would like the image on the left. That's the image that I first processed as well, and I shared. That's probably the first image from Japan that I shared with people. But the image that is closer to my heart here is the one on the right, wherein it adds a little bit of mystery to the entire thing. Whereas there is some broodiness to the image. Then that's what I liked, I guess. Yeah. Okay. I missed out talking about these guys. This is where I was probably in all my time in Japan. This is the species that I'm not satisfied at all with my images. Primarily because I have never been lucky at this place to get fresh snow. And if you ever want to go to Japan, and you end up reading about this place called Jigokudani, where you get these snow monkeys coming into the water, you'll read that it started warming up really fast. This place is starting to see lesser and lesser snow every year. Anyways, fingers crossed, 2021, if I do go, if coronavirus does allow us to go, fingers crossed that we might get snow there. But even without snow, it is not always that these buggers come into the water. They come into the water only if it gets too cold. So unless it goes like under -5, these guys are not going to be in the water. And then they are like useless shots. And on this trip, we went to this place thrice, and only once did we get them in the water. And when they are in the water, it's really fun. It's really fun that they are bold again, like every other creature in Japan. They are bold. They will look directly in your face, into the camera. They will bite each other, play with each other in the water. So yeah, it's fun. And they're very easy to shoot. You can try out whatever you want. It's in the valley, so you're never going to get too much of sunlight here. So that way it is easy for the camera and easy for the photographer as well. You don't have to do much with the exposures there. And there's one more slide for the people who like to click different species. It's not as if Japan does not have other species. It's just that we do not concentrate too much on them, except for two places. One in Lake Kusharo, during the afternoon times when the sun is too harsh, you don't have much to do. Most of the places have bird feeders, just like you have bird feeders in in resorts these days in India. You've got bird
Right.
feeders there as well, and you get woodpeckers and nuthatches and tits out there, so that you can keep yourself busy. But more interestingly, for the people from India especially, would be the ducks that you see here. Most of these ducks you see in India as well, and most of them are super hard to find. For example, the first one is a common golden eye. You have to go to the northeast to shoot that, and then also you get only one or two of them every year. The second one is the mallard. The mallard is seen in Jamnagar probably every year, so it's probably the easier one to catch. The third one is a greater scaup. Again, this is a vagrant kind of species for India, so very tough to get. The gentleman on the right is a red-breasted merganser. I remember a couple of years back, one red-breasted merganser ended up in Bhandup pumping station, and the entire world was there shooting this guy. So yeah, these guys are relatively easy to get there. The one on the bottom is the only image that I really wanted to show. This is the image of a falcated teal. I will not lie, but I wanted to get an image of this species. I don't know why I like this species a lot. It's not a typical portrait that you would want. It's slightly offbeat, but it works for me in the way it's come out. And this is the only species that I was very happy that I got a species. For everything else, I'm talking about light and composition. For this one, I was like, I got the species. So yeah, a birder never, the birder in you never dies probably. And then there's this small tiny guy called the harlequin duck, which people who've been in US would recognize. It's very common in New York and surroundings as well, and it's very common in Japan as well. A beautiful looking chap, and relatively easy to click, especially when you're waiting for your ship in Rausu. These guys are very comfortable with you around in the port, so you can lie down in the port and click them at eye level. That's it. I've taken all your time of your webinar talking about some stupid images, Abhijit. Now it's over to you.
Beautiful set of images, and we learned a lot. So Rahul, what kind of gear do you recommend people should carry on a trip to Japan?
Yeah, so when I went first time, I carried everything that I could possibly think of. Okay, every goddamn thing I was carrying with me. But I think if you have to choose, and if you do not own all the equipment, and if you want to rent equipment, I think what you cannot go without is a 100-400 range. I think most of my shots, most of them are with 100-400. Yes, at the Swan place, it is mandatory to have a wide angle.
Right.
There are a couple of locations where you need something more than the 400 mm. But I never felt that, for example, if I would have taken the, whatever is a good 500 mm that you think, 200, 500 or 150, 600 sports, 150, 600 G of Tamron, that's also fine, I believe. Because there are only a couple of places in the entire tour where I really wanted to click with the 500 mm. So I was carrying a 500 f4. Next time, probably, if I do carry a zoom, if I do carry a prime, it will probably be the 400 2.8 and a teleconverter with it, not the 500 mm, because I don't think I used it much. And if I go without the 100-400, I'd rather come back without shooting anything, because so the 100-400 or something similar in that, something that covers that range, maybe the 200-500, maybe the 150-600, that is your bread and butter. And one thing that I advise in every tour is that the number of cameras that you carry should be equal to the number of lenses that you carry. I do not say that because I care about the camera. Okay, if you've been around me, you know that I am not very good at handling cameras, and Abhijit is going to keep that in mind the next time he rents me a piece of equipment. But really speaking, it is a big hindrance in the field to stop, change the lens, change the camera body, and then shoot again. It's 90% of the times when I am in a situation where I have lesser camera than the number of lenses I have, one of the lenses is just never used. I just block that compositional field from my mindset. I don't know why, but I am sure that will happen with most people, that you shoot with what's available and not something that you have to make up in the field. Which is why I suggest, if you can, for example, for Japan, if you can afford only 2 cameras and 2 lenses, carry a wide angle and carry a nice zoom lens, which gives you kind of 100, 150, 600 or 100, 400 kind of thing.
Right.
Not a 7200, for example. 7200 is not enough. Don't carry that.
And lots of batteries.
Oh yeah, lots of batteries and lots of cards. Especially when you're going to Japan for the first time, it's like going to a tiger park for the first time. When I first went to Ranthambore, I remember I clicked some 4 or 5 different cards, each of 16 GB. So I had like, in a 2-day tour, I had like 100 GB of data without a tiger. I did not see a tiger. Still, I had bloody 100 GB of data, because when you visit a place for the first time, you're gonna go crazy clicking because you do not know what's.
Yes.
It's just natural, and over time you will start reducing the number of shots you take. So the first time you go, carry as many cards as you can. I have gone through 3 or 4 32 GB cards in a day in Japan, and I do not click much, believe me. So yeah, don't be shy, don't be kya bolte hain, frugal on that part.
Right.
Yeah.
So Rahul, Anand has a question about wide angles for Swans. So what he asks is, do you need a very wide lens like a 16-35 mm, or is a standard 24-70 enough?
If you're on a full frame, yeah, 24-70 is enough. But if you're on a crop, yeah, 24-70 will not be enough. 16-35, I know that one of my guests, Devendra, had carried both the 16-35 and the 24-105 as well. He did click some very unique perspectives with the 16-35, which will always end up happening. If you have a 16-35, you are going to end up with a unique perspective for 1 or 2 images at least. But that's it, just for 1 or 2 images. But if you want to choose between the two, it has to be the 24. I would go with the 24-105 just for the range. But yeah, if you like the 24-70 for the f2.8 and the nice bokeh, you can go with the 24-70 as well.
Okay. And we have one more question from Abhijit, who is asking, how long can you expect one battery to last on continuous shooting? Or maybe how many shots can you expect it to give? Let's talk about a specific LPE6 battery. So I think that's an easier question to answer.
Well, I don't know whether I measured how long it lasted, but I know that at the Swan, it differs from your, for example, if you're shooting the cranes when they land after the river, the temperature is slightly up, and I have gone through an entire session with just single battery. So entire session meaning 3 or 4 hours. But I've also had a situation where on the crane, I landed at 4 o'clock with a battery which was full. 7 o'clock, I had to change the battery without shooting anything, because the battery just died.
Yeah.
So it depends, but yeah, I mean, on a normal day, you can go one session with one battery, but not more than that. Yeah. And I don't know how much you shoot in that. If you shoot 5,000, obviously it will not go. But with a normal shooting, one session will be okay.
So Rahul, most people know what to expect when they travel to Africa in terms of the travel arrangements, the stay, the food, and all of that. How about Japan? What kind of arrangements can one expect?
Yeah, that's probably, if I have to talk about a negative in Japan for Indians, it's the stay. Not because they are not good in terms of the cleanliness. Japan, will be clean and hygienic, and in fact super clean.
Yes.
So that's not the problem. The only issue in Japan is that most places are having bathrooms which are not attached. In fact, you'll since we are going to very remote areas, you're not going to have any fantasy lodges there, or big chains there. You are staying in homestays in a couple of places, and you will end up, at least in 1 or 2 places, you will end up having a shared bathroom, and that's a concept that we do not, as Indians, we are not used to. And that's the only negative that I came across. Otherwise, yeah, Japanese people do not believe in luxury in terms of the space in a room. The rooms are tiny. They are clean. The food is good. They are big believers in a concept called onsen, wherein you've got open baths which you can go and enjoy, and they're like open swimming pools, tiny swimming pools, heated. And every place, no matter how tiny, maybe it might be a homestay with 2 rooms, but they will have some kind of an onsen, wherein they will have some minerals in the water and heated water, wherein you can relax and end the day really nicely. It's kind of a cultural shock for Indians, because we are not used to having public baths, but that's what it's there in Japan. And if you get used to it, I'm sure you'll hook onto it very, very soon. But apart from that, everything is fantastic. people are very, very good to talk to. They like to see people coming from India because they're not used to people from India, especially for birding. As you said, not many people land up there. And I had a tour operator from US. I think Wild Images is the company, Mark Benon, who really asked me, you guys Indians, what are you doing here in minus 30 degrees Celsius? I mean, I've never seen any of you guys here earlier. So yeah, it was a nice feeling. And I think it's a place that if you just keep an open mind, you will really enjoy. You really enjoy both the food and the hospitality that they have to offer as well.
So, and when we talk about Japan, it's very difficult to sort of keep culture out of the discussion. So, have you had any interesting experiences with Japanese people and Japanese culture?
Oh yeah. I mean, we read a lot before going. I mean, in fact, when I booked my tour, the first thing my tour operator sent me was the local guide there. He sent me a list of documents saying this is how Japanese culture is. Read up about it. So, for example, you do not walk in with your shoes. They will give you shoes for the house which are different than the shoes that you wear outside. So you first remove your shoes, wear the shoes that they give you, and then you remove those shoes before you enter the room, and then get into the room. There are various things that you will read. Some funny, some not so funny. I remember one particular incident that happened and it was, I mean, in hindsight, I should have known about it. But so we were having these noodles, and everybody by the end of the tour knows how to eat with chopsticks. I can guarantee you that. Yeah, I can guarantee you that. If nothing else, for all the money that you spend, you will at least learn how to eat using chopsticks. Not that it is mandatory. You ask for a spoon and a fork, they will give you a spoon and a fork. But even the most reluctant guys ended up with learning how to eat with the chopsticks. So we were eating something with the chopsticks, and habitually, what happens is, like, for example, if you're eating a bowl of Maggi in India, and you want to take a break, you put the fork in the bowl, and it'll rest, right? With the Maggie's consistency, it'll rest, and that's it. So I did that with the chopsticks. I was taking a break, eating something else, I think, because generally they have a 7-course meal, and I'm not exaggerating. It's not a 4-course meal; it's a 7-course meal. There is so much stuff out there that you have to take turns on eating one on the other, eating each thing. So we were eating some noodles. I plonked in the chopsticks in the noodle soup. And my guide is like, what are you doing? And I'm like, what happened? So apparently, they do something similar at funerals. So they keep a bowl, and they keep ash or something in the bowl, and everybody puts in their chopsticks in that. And it is something that is done only at a funeral. So that was a shock to me. And obviously, it was unintentional. But and our guide, being a Native American, actually, he understood, but he did say that I had already sent you that document. It had it written. So yeah, I made that mistake. And the second thing that happened, again, my mistake. I make a lot of mistakes. Okay, I mean, guys, I am the first one to admit that. So the next mistake that I did was when we reached our last destination, which is a place called Lake Furen, where you get, just like Rausu, you get a lot of eagles here as well, where people have thrown out scraps and the eagles come and fight for it, sort of thing. So we went there, and we stayed at our guide's house, a Japanese guide who we stayed at his house itself. He's a very respected elderly gentleman, 75 years old, still much fitter than all of us put together. And he said that dinner will be at 7:30. At 7:15, I realized that I can't find my hard disk. All the images that were stored in the hard disk from the last 12 days, I can't find it. And obviously, I'm panicking. And my friends are panicking with me. What the hell? So we were like, let's call up the last resort. And the last resort was at a place where we had to, probably send a telegram or something, because there was no way they were going to have a phone. So we were trying to find out how can somebody go there and ask them whether I've left a hard disk there, and go back 4 hours and get it. And this guy comes at 7:32, and he says, I do not like food cold. So that was a shock to me. Well, it ended up that the hard disk was in one of my pockets of one of my pants, so no harm done there. But yeah, they are very particular about time, very particular about time, and they will never be late, and they will never accept you being late as well. So yeah, those were the only two incidences in the 2 weeks I spent this year in Japan, or last year in Japan, and yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah. So Rahul, when the lockdown lifts, do you expect to make more trips to Japan? Do you expect to take people along with you?
So I already have a trip announced to Japan, and it starts on the 28th of Feb in 2021.
Mhm.
But it all depends on how coronavirus is and how it plays around, because I believe that in the short in the short future, in the near future, in the near future, I believe that most tourism, wildlife photography tourism, will happen within India. uh,
Right.
and people would not venture to even Masai Mara. Japan is a very far place, but having said that, Japan is probably one of the only countries which has managed to control coronavirus at this point in time, and purely
Very
because
well.
of the discipline that they have. Right? I
Right.
mean, not because of lockdowns, but purely because of the discipline that the people showed. But yeah, I mean, I fingers crossed. I have a tour announced on my website, so maybe if the times are right, we will. I know that there are people who are interested. I already have 3 people who want to come with me to Japan, who had, if corona wouldn't have been in picture, we would have gone. And I generally do not take more than 4 or 5 people on any of my tours anyways,
Okay.
because I don't think, especially for where, uh, especially for birds, because the more the number of people, the more chances of them getting disturbed. uh,
Right.
the only exception being Bharatpur, because there, it doesn't matter how many people are there, because the birds are not bothered about you at all. Here, the areas are very small. As I said, on the bridge, if I have more than 4 people on the bridge, inevitably the fifth person is going to get a bad slot, and that's not something that I want to end up handling. So yeah, small groups are always good.
Sure.
And yeah,
And
near future. Yeah, tell me. Go ahead. Sorry.
sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, please.
No, I was just saying, I was just re-emphasizing that near future, I think it's more of domestic travel that I will also do, and most people will end up doing, I believe, more of domestic travel. Yeah.
So Anand has a question around what is the kind of budget one should have in mind when planning a trip to Japan?
Okay, there are 2 things that you need to think about when you say that. The most costly thing in Japan is getting a good guide. Okay, the guides there come at a very steep price. More than anything else, it's the guide. If you can speak Japanese, however, this can be done very cheap. uh, I can't speak Japanese, and none of my guests that I know of can speak Japanese. But if there is any guest who can speak Japanese, I'll give him like free, come free to Japan, because most of the cost is for the guides who can speak English, and translate it for you, and know the place,
Right.
know the areas. Now I know the places, but I don't know Japanese yet to travel well. But yeah, if you look up on the web and see the uh, predominant players in the market who take Japan as a tour. For example, there is Wild Images, there is Ada, there is Tusk Photo, there is Quiver, which is owned by Marcel Van Oosten, who's the winner of NHM this year. All of these guys play in the range of around $9,000, $8,000, $9,000. I have not been able to figure out why. Okay, but they are playing in that market, $8,000, $9,000. Probably these guys play with the same figure even in Africa, but I think they cater to a different audience. And most of the tours that I could see were, let me say, safely upwards of 6,500. What we are
Okay.
looking at, when I announced it to the 2021 tour, I brought it down to around $4,200 is, if I remember correctly, the price. And that, I think, is decent enough in terms of, maybe they stay in 5 stars. I don't know. Maybe they stay in better properties. I don't know. They probably are at certain level more experienced in Japan than me. For example, I know that some of these guys have been visiting Japan for 20 years, so their experience matters. And believe me, experience matters. I'm not never going to deny that. Experience in the place will obviously give you better images. But yeah, to cut the answer short, what I am looking at is around $4,000 if you know Japanese, and I can then, if you are staying in Japan, for example, I can help you design the entire tour on your own, and you probably will do it at a much cheaper cost as well. Yeah.
Sure. So Rahul, one last question, which has nothing to do with Japan, but since we have your attention, I will still throw that question at you.
Yeah.
Post-COVID, where do you see the future of wildlife photography and photo tours or traveling for photography?
So I think the biggest question is, what is post? I don't know whether COVID is going to end or we're going to learn to live with it. But let's not get into that debate here. I don't think we have enough knowledge, or I have enough knowledge to get into that debate. But I think, assuming, as I mentioned earlier, when we were talking about my tour to Japan, whether I'm going to do a tour to Japan, I think post COVID, what's going to happen is, one is people are probably going to not get out 20 times a year. For example, the frequent travelers these days travel
Yes.
almost once a month. I don't think that's going to happen much in the near future. What probably will happen though is people will do longer tours. So, for example, if you do decide to get out, you will say that, okay, no, I'm getting out once. Let me do justice to that place more and then come back. So, if I go to Bandhavgarh, I'll probably not go for 3 days. I'll go for 8 days and come back. Rather than going once in May and once in November, I'll choose one of those two and I'll just do a week in Bandhavgarh. That's probably what will happen. That's what I have heard of from the guys whom I am in contact with. That most people now will probably start looking at going out lesser frequently, but for a longer duration of time. And as I suggested, as I said, I think it'll be domestic travel first and then international travel. I think the next 1 year we are going to see a surge in the domestic travel, surge in people trying out newer and local areas as well. For example, I believe that in Pune, in this coming winter, Big One is going to see a massive inflow of people. So primes and zooms will be happy that everybody will want 150, 600 or 100, 400 to rent. And but yeah, that also makes sense. I think if you think about it, even as a photographer, I think it's a better thing. Rather than keeping on going to new places, if you keep repeating the places again and again, you are going to come back with better images. You are going to not only come back with a better images, you will also come back as a better photographer, more aware of their own limitations, more aware of their own likes and dislikes and what you want to try in the field. So yeah, I think it's a good time in that sense, that people will end up after COVID, after the entire scare is gone. Once people really are ready for international travel, I think they'll all be better photographers by then. So that's what I feel. That was the silver lining for me in all of this, if I may say so.
Right. So Rahul, we're at the end of our session. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you for having me, guys. Thank you for whoever has joined. Thank you for tolerating me for 1 hour. Not easy, I know. Ask my wife. But yeah, thank you so much.
I doubt any of our wives have very flattering things to say about us. But anyway,
that's a different topic. Yeah, let's not get there.
Thanks to our audience as well for joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, guys. Yeah.
Thanks,
Abhijit.
Bye.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye-bye.